Well, for more on the Trump effect on the world's richest people and industries, we're joined by DaRayl Davis. He's a financial analyst and the author of The Smart Money Millionaire. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So, DaRayl, let's start with the big winners. We saw that recent data shows that 36 Chinese billionaires on Bloomberg's list have increased their wealth by 13% since November. What's happening there?
You know, there's a perception that while there's this tough talk from the Trump administration calling China a currency manipulator, in practice, they've used in the Trump organization Chinese steel to build. He's a big developer. Most of the world's cranes are now in China. They're continuing to build for a supposed capacity that their demographics aren't supporting. So I think there's this anticipation that the speculation and the growth and the bubble in their engine won't stop, and a Trump administration is favorable to that.
But how much of this bump is attributed to Donald Trump being in office as opposed to, say, other factors?
You know, I think it's just happens chance to some degree that it's Trump being in office, you know, coinciding with this bubble and this continued expansion. It's just that the Chinese have continued by their government to support building for their urbanization moves and moving people into, you know, being productive in their workforce, but I think it's all unsustainable. It just happens to overlap with Trump's election as U.S. president.
Certainly a lot, including the markets riding on this optimism, still waiting for some of these concrete details. Now, China's growth did outpace other countries that also saw their rich get richer. So why China, and why not other countries really stepping up as well?
You know, China has this unique structure. It's a top-down government, obviously communist, but they've been facilitating a sort of government-led capitalism, their form of things. So they've buoyed the banks artificially, which has fueled the speculation. They love real estate, and they have very high savings rates amongst their citizens and, of course, their high net worth. And so this combination has continued to expect them to believe, oh, well, our real estate certainly can't go down. You know, they're building the world's tallest buildings in China. They've built cities for capacities of millions of folks with nobody there. But the government doesn't want to see it go down on their watch. So they're going to continue to support it and thus support this bubble.
Now, let's also turn to Russia. They got a 10% bump. What do you think are the reasons there? You
know, there's a perception that they'll continue to do better because they have a friend in the White House. Now, the question is whether that will be sustained through the scrutiny of the Russia-Kremlin relationships to the Trump camp. And I mean, I think the court's still out on that. However, Russians and their oligarchs and their billionaires have certainly benefited from the perception that they've got a friend there.
Now, let's look at the people who perhaps haven't benefited, especially Mexico. We saw that their billionaires lost 5%. Carlos Slim, Mexico's richest man, lost an estimated $16 billion since Trump first announced he was running for president. But to what degree is that due to elements of what's happening in Mexico's economy versus what's happening with this spat with the Trump administration?
I think a large degree of it is coming from the spat with the Trump administration, just because, again, this is speculation that the U.S.-Mexican relationships are going to continue to be challenged, thus Mexico emerging as a good trade partner and a supplier of goods, services, cheap labor to the U.S. is going to be further complicated. And so the peso has been beat up a bit from that whole thing, which has caused the bottom lines for Carlos Slim and other billionaires to be challenged by this relationship.
Now, it's interesting. We did see that the peso obviously took a tumble with his immigration stance and this threat to build a wall. Now, even though he mentioned Mexico, he did also mention China, but we didn't see the same sort of slump. Why do you think China was perhaps more insulated than Mexico when it came to Trump's approach and the rhetoric that he used?
You know, previous administrations have mentioned challenges to China, but when you're the epicenter of the economic engine for the planet at present, you know, it's more so, sure, you can say that, but in practice, are they going to follow through on anything? The Mexican challenges are more obvious. They're like, here are plans to begin to build this wall. You know, popular people who are in U.S. cities being deported. All of these things suggest that they're truly going to follow through with these threats, if you will, and take action against Mexico.
Now, a lot of this obviously is still riding on enthusiasm. We saw that even tech titans, certain industries really have gotten the benefits of this Trump bump. How long do you think that optimism can continue? And what do you think would perhaps put a dampener on all of it?
Well, there's a number of situations that are vying to be the triggers for what I would say is a impending global economic collapse. And, China, could be the red dragon at the epicenter of that all because they're building for capacity that's yet to come. Their demographics aren't supporting it. Urbanization even isn't supporting it. So that could be a trigger. The challenge with oil and how it could impact Russia and other parts of the world, even America and the fracking industries, that could be a trigger. And so this enthusiasm can't be sustained beyond what the numbers are showing as we get beyond just the talk and look for the meat of, the fruit of what's going to be delivered by Trump and others.
Certainly a lot of uncertainty, and we're only 50 days in, but thank you for joining us. That was DaRayl Davis, author of Smart Money Millionaire and financial analyst. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.